Hi computer scientists, Mr. Stafford here, and I wanted to go over Unit 5, Lesson 5, Evaluating 2D Arrays with you. The first level asks us to predict what will be printed from this program. So analyzing the program, it says My Console class, and in My Console we have a two-dimensional int array, and its name is daily posts. So we have a two-dimensional int array filled with these numbers. And then we make a social media analyzer object called myPosts. And then we feed it this two-dimensional integer array of daily posts. So what you should do is take a minute and look at social media analyzer and determine what's happening in this class to know what is getting printed here. So if you want to pause the video now, I'm going to explain how this works, and then we'll see what gets printed. So in Social Media Analyzer, we have the instance variable social media posts. The constructor initializes that 2D array of integers called social media posts. So essentially, when we're in My Console class, this is the 2D int array that's getting passed to the constructor, okay? And then it has a single method called hiPosts, and that is what we are printing to the console, is what is getting returned from hiPosts. So again, our return statement is going to be an int, and looking at this method, we are traversing the 2D array in row major order. So we're going rows first and then columns. And we're determining if, in this if statement, the social media post at the row and the column is greater than 40. And if that element in the 2D array is greater than 40, we are going to return it. And then if we never get to a post that's greater than 40, we're going to return -1 because it's going to traverse through the entire two-dimensional array, and if it does not find anything that's greater than 40, it's not going to ever hit this return statement. So then we're just going to return -1. So let's go back to My Console class, and I'm looking for anything that's greater than 40, and I see that 42 is greater than 40. So I think that 42 is going to get returned. I'm going to hit run to double check it. It's compiling, and 42 was that first social media post that was over 40. You can tinker with this. You can change everything that you see that is above 40, change it to under 40, and you'll see that -1 will get returned. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. On to the next level. First thing it asks us to do is import owner.java from our backpack. So I'm going to go backpack, find owner, and it says in owner, write the method half-dozen-special to find and return the first food truck that has all quantities available in multiples of 6. Okay, so we're back to my food truck. And we're taking a look at the inventories. And the inventories, if we're talking about a half-dozen special, a half-dozen is 6. Okay? And so each of these inventories, each of the inner arrays and inventories illustrates what each food truck has in stock. Okay? So we're trying to see if any of these food trucks, each of these arrays is demonstrating a food truck, has inventories that are all quantities available that are multiples of 6. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go to owner. Okay. And we need to write the method half-dozen special. So I'm going to flow down to the bottom of my class, and I'm going to write half-dozen special. And I see that in the instructions, it actually has some instructions for me in the way of comments. tab that curly brace over. And here we go. Let me flow back up here. So I'm going to follow the instructions in these comments now, because they're basically my guide. So it says number 1. I'm going to get out of this comment. And it says number 1: traverse each row of the truck inventories array. So I'm going to write a for loop. So I'm going to go for int row is going to be equal to 0, and row is going to be less than. So I have hopefully a 2-dimensional array of truck inventories. Okay, so truck inventories is actually what that instance variable was called. So traverse each row of the truck inventories array. So row is going to be less than truck inventories dot length. And then row plus plus. Okay, open up my curly brace. And I'm going to copy this comment. I'm going to cut it and then paste it up here, because this is what I'm going to do next. Okay, so then it says too, before checking each column, initialize a Boolean variable to be true. So let's think about for a second what this Boolean variable is supposed to be. So the Boolean variable is if this truck inventory has all inventories that are of multiple of 6 or a half dozen. So let's say Boolean, Boolean, all half dozen is going to be equal to true, because it says initialize a Boolean variable to true. Okay. Step number 3. So again, I need to be inside this curly boy. I'm going to grab all these comments actually and put them in Command X, Command B, and make sure that these are tabbed over so it's all pretty. Okay. So step number 3, traverse each column of the truck inventories array. So I've already traversed the rows. This is row major order. And now I'm going to traverse the columns. Int call is going to be equal to 0. Call is going to be less than truck inventories at row 0 dot length, and then call plus plus. Open up this curly brace. I'm going to steal all the other comments again and put them up here. Okay, and then it says, check if the value is not a multiple of 6. So check if the value is not a multiple of 6. So that tells me I need an if statement. And then what I'm doing is looking at the value in truck inventories. So truck inventories at row call is not a multiple of 6. So we need to remember the not operator and the modulus operator. Actually, let's do this. At mod 6, okay, so 6 is a half dozen, is not equal to 0. If it was a multiple of 0 and we modded it by, if it was a multiple of 6 and we modded it by 6, the remainder should be 0. Okay, so we want to check if it is not a multiple of 6. So anyway, if it's a multiple of 6, the remainder would be 0. Anything else, anything that is not equal to 0, that means that it is not a multiple of 6. Okay, so if it's not a multiple of 6, set the Boolean value to be false. So I'm going to cut that comment and put it in here. So I'm going to set my Boolean variable, all half dozen. I'm going to set that equal to false. Okay. After traversing each column and before checking the next row, check if the Boolean value is still true. Okay, so I'm in this if statement, and I'm also inside of my inner loop. So it says after traversing each column. So what I need to do, I'm going to cut these comments. And get out of that inner loop. Okay, after traversing each column. So I am currently here. Okay, traversing each column, and before checking the next row, check if the Boolean variable is still true. So I'm going to say if all half dozen. Okay, I can say is equal to true, but I mean this is going to be a Boolean value either way, so it's either going to be true or false. And if it is true, here's comment number 7 now. I'm in this if statement. It's telling me if it is true, return the row plus 1 to get the food truck number. So this is telling me if all half dozen is true, that means the food truck has inventories that are all multiples of 6, and I want to return that food truck number. So in this if statement, I want to do a return, and I want to do row plus 1. And again, that plus 1 is because we index our rows at 0. So let's take a look real quick at my food truck. Okay, let's look at the inventories. This is 6, 3, and 12. 3 is not a multiple of 6. We've got 24, 0, and 30. 0 is not a multiple of 6. But we've got 12, 6, and 18. And that should be, those are all multiples of 6. Maybe 0 is a multiple of 6. We'll see what it spits out at me. But anyway, I'm predicting the answer is either in the second or third row. And so this is essentially truck number 2, row 1. And this is truck number 3, row 2, because we have that off by 1. Okay. Flow back down here. It says, if no food truck found, return -1. Okay, so that means that we have gone through all the rows of this two-dimensional array and not found a food truck with inventories of multiples of 6. So what I can do, what I'm trying to determine is where my last curly brace is for this class. So I'm in public int half dozen special. Where's the curly brace for that one? And it is here. Okay, very good. So now what I need to do is I can just do return -1. And hopefully I'm all good there. Oh, I just saw this. I have this if statement, and 2 curly braces are open and closed right there. I need to make sure that that curly brace comes around here. I'm going to run this and see if I have any errors. Okay, we do have an error. I want to add another curly brace here and make sure that this curly brace is belonging to my outer loop, and it is right now. I see that it is also highlighted. Okay, let's go to the console and run it again. Got to make sure that we keep track of our curly braces. Okay, and then this curly brace should belong to my method, and it does, and I see that I've got an additional curly brace here. Okay, so let's clean this up a little bit. Okay, so I'm okay as far as not having any compile time errors. I might have some logic ones. We're gonna have to check that. So it says in myFoodTruck.java, call the method and print the result to inform the owner which food truck can offer the special, for example. And then it gives us this print statement. Food truck number 1 can offer the special. So here's what I want to do. It says food truck owner, new owner Kathy, inventories and prices. I want to print this, so I'm going to do a system.out.print, and I'm going to say food truck number, and then I'm going to call that method that we just wrote, which is called half dozen special. So food truck owner dot half dozen special, and then concatenate the rest of this string, can offer the special. And I've got one too many quotation marks. Okay, I'm going to clear the console, run this, and I don't think I have a semicolon. Make sure we put in our semicolon. And food truck 2 can offer the special. So 0 is a multiple of 6. 0 is a multiple of 6, and that makes sense if you think about, well, 6 times 0 is equal to 0. That makes sense here. So I'm going to change that quantity, actually. And I'm going to clear it and run it, and now I think that the third food truck should work out. And I thought I hit run. I'm going to hit stop again and run one more time. Let it think for a moment. I'm being impatient, and I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, make sure I still have that call. I do. Go ahead and run this. And it is food truck number 3 once I changed this value from 0 to 1. Okay, I'm going to change it back to 0 though, because that's what we had. And I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Oops, well, rerun this again. Yeah, rerun it. Okay, go ahead and click finish. All right, and it says, what if the quantity is 0? 0 is evenly divisible by 6, but the owner doesn't want the food truck to offer this special if they have a 0 quantity. Okay, so this is the issue that we ran into last time that I was kind of talking about. 0 is a multiple of 6, but I mean, I don't technically have a quantity there. So let's read the instructions. But the owner doesn't want the food truck to offer the special if they have a 0 quantity. Update your half dozen special method for the new requirement. Okay, so let's think about how we're going to change this requirement. I want to check and determine if the multiple is of 6, right? So truck inventory row column is not equal to 0. After we divide it by 6. And I want to check and see if the truck inventories is equal to 0. Okay. If that's equal to 0, I want to make all half dozen to be false. Okay. I think that's the only update that we need. So let's test this thing, and it should be food truck number 1 can offer the special. That's not really what I had in mind, because food truck number 1 still has 0 as the still has 0 as one of the quantities. So I'm going to flow back to it, and let's think about this again. Oh, my logic, I think, is off. Okay. I want this to be an OR statement, not an AND statement. For example, if my remainder is 1, it can't be 1 and 0 at the same time. So my logic is off. So I'm going to put down 2 pipes for an OR statement, and then let's rerun this. So if the remainder is not equal to 0, or if the truck inventories at that row and column is equal to 0. Okay, my logic was off there, so let's do food truck number 3 can offer this special, which is what I have had in mind right there. Okay, very good. We'll finish that. Complete the check your understanding. Flow on to level number 5. And level number 5 says this. In owner.java, so I'm going to flow back to owner.java. I'm going to minimize the instructions a little bit. Write the method find quantities. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. That counts and returns the number of food trucks that have quantities of desserts greater than or equal to a specified amount. Okay, so we're going to specify an amount, and we're going to count and return the number of food trucks that have the quantities of desserts greater than or equal to the specified amount. Okay, cool. So again, I have got this method kind of stubbed out in the instructions. So I am going to write this method underneath the previous method that we just wrote. And it says, to do, count and return the number of food trucks that have quantities of desserts greater than or equal to the quantities. Okay, so I have a parameter in this method named quantity. And so my goal is to count the number of food trucks that have that quantity or greater. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an int, and I'm going to call it sum. And right now it's going to be equal to 0. The next thing that I need to do is traverse all of these food trucks. Okay, I'm going to do this in row major order. So for int row is equal to 0. Row is going to be less than. I've already forgotten the name of it. It's truck quantities, my instance variable. Truck quantities dot length. Row plus plus. And then I need to open up that for loop. Okay. And then in this for loop, what I want to do is kind of mimic what I did before. What I did before is I created a Boolean all half dozens, and I set it to be true. But what I want to do right now, since I'm going through all the quantities, is I want to just say that, like, I don't have it. I don't have those quantities initially until I confirm that I do, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say Boolean has quantity. This is going to be equal to false, okay, initially. And then I'm going to traverse each of the quantities in that truck, okay, because I'm going to get to the row, which represents the truck, and then I'm going to get inside of the truck and look at all the quantities, which are the columns. So for int call is going to be equal to 0. Call is going to be equal to truck inventories at index 0 dot length, and then call plus plus. Okay. I am going to check and see if truck inventories at row and call is greater than or equal to quantity. If that is true, I want to say has quantity equals true. Okay, so I'm done with this if statement. I'm done with this inner for loop. And if I'm done with that inner for loop, that means that I have checked that food truck. And I want to add 1 to my sum, meaning that, like, yes, there is a truck in here, and I want to, that has that quantity. So I'm going to say if has quantity is true, that means I'm getting in this if statement, I'm going to do sum plus plus. Okay, so I'm done with this if statement. I'm done with the outer for loop, and then at the very end, I want to return my sum. Okay, let's test this. So it says, I want to run it, make sure I don't have any errors, see if I have any missed semicolons. Okay, it ran successfully. Then it says, in my food truck, call the method and print the result. So I'm going to make this pretty. I'm going to make a new line after my previous print statement. I'm going to steal this print statement. And it says, and I'm going to steal this printout. So call the method. I'm going to say there are food truck owner dot, and then I've already forgotten the method name that I just wrote, find quantities. Find quantities that have enough inventory. So I need a parameter for this. So find quantities. I'm just gonna call it on 30. I'm gonna look at the biggest number that I've got. Find quantities 30, because I want it to just print 1. Food trucks that have enough inventory. Okay, so I'm going to grab that. Paste it here. Let's rerun this. So there are 1 food trucks that have enough inventory. Okay, very good. And if I do 31 and I run this, I should have 0. There are no food trucks with that. And let's just have a single dessert. Single dessert. All food trucks have an inventory of 1 or more. All right, very good. I'm going to finish on this. Okay. Complete the check your understanding, and that is it for Unit 5, Lesson 5, Evaluating 2D Arrays.